Guys, if you care about the Britney Spears case, you need to absolutely be paying attention to this one. This one is horrifying. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and man, this one just gets my blood boiling. I'm so happy to have Christopher Melcher back. Thank you so much for being here again. Tape this evening to try and get this out for you guys today because this is an important one. I don't see a lot of people talking about this as much as they should. So, guys, let me break down what's happening, and I want to get Christopher's take on this legally and why this is so problematic. So, you guys remember Time's Up, right? I imagine Time's Up came out of the Me Too movement as sort of it's time's up for us to clear out all the bad guys in Hollywood and all industries to stand up for women who had been. I got to be careful on some of my keywords here, guys, but hopefully you guys know what that movement was about. Well, it turns out one of the folks behind that movement was actually forced to resign amid backlash in an effort to shame and try to discredit accusers who came forward against Andrew Cuomo. Discrediting them, basically complete conflicts of interest, letting Cuomo get away with whatever he apparently was accused of, and telling him his accusers were wrong. This lawyer in question is Roberta Kaplan. Now, for those of you watching the channel, you may know this name. Roberta Kaplan was once Amber Heard's lawyer as well, and in fact has lied about her as well in the case with Johnny Depp. Look, this isn't just even about Johnny or Brit. This is such an awful story because, guys, what the basic gist of what's happening here is these people were using these women who were rallying for support, these that had been through the worst crimes imaginable. These women who are, I want to say the word over and again, but I got to be careful. I'm still early in the video and YouTube won't let me. But all of these victims, and basically using their backs to create a fund and a campaign that they were not only profiting for, but not being on the up and up about. They were basically deciding to give whoever had the most power or whoever they were closer to more leeway than others. And pretty much just completely, in my opinion, the pin in the balloon of just sort of, well, this whole movement is nonsense now. How do we trust anybody involved in Time's Up, Me Too, which a lot of people have been saying from the beginning, but only just proves the amount of hypocrisy in Hollywood, in these industries, with these lawyers, the shadiness, the corruption. It's just so awful what this woman is caught doing, and it looks like nothing's going to happen to her. Like nothing. She's just, bad apple. We try to protect everybody. And sometimes, a bad guy gets in the mix and we just don't know, but that's how it is. We've done so much good, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. I don't think she's done good. So I wanted to break down more of this. And I'm so glad Christopher's here because Christopher, you've done some research today. You've looked into this. You share some of the concerns I have, correct? This is not a good story today.
This is extremely disappointing, and the harm that's been done by Roberta Kaplan and her conflicting roles, really makes my blood boil too as a lawyer, because we as lawyers cannot have two masters. We have one client and we have to serve that client. And we also can't lie, we can't misrepresent, we can't deceive. Now, I know that people are probably laughing when I'm saying that because they think lawyers do that all the time, but there are actually rules and they need to be followed. And I'm hoping there's going to be consequences here because this is really, really bad what happened here, not just as a lawyer in violation, I think, of her duties, but what it does to victims. Who do we trust now? So this is whatever benefit Time's Up did, this has been completely canceled and offset by the harm that we're now seeing was done by this real inside job.
Yeah, I mean, look, and a lot of people have already been saying this before this even happened, that this was all, like witch hunts and da-da-da-da, and I've been a part of one of those, so I know that there's valid. Of course, we have to listen to victims that step forward, and we have to listen to them, but we have to actually do our due diligence and hear out both sides. We must follow through, due process. All these things are also important. And so when you find out and hope and think and you put all your money, guys, look at the money. Follow the money. These charities were set up by the celebrities. And this is an old article. This is from November 2020. And we still did nothing. They raised, with all these celebrities, $1.4 million was spent on salaries, including $157K on conferences at luxury resorts for the Time's Up campaign. I'm sure that was important and valuable. I mean, Christopher, these are kind of sketchy numbers to come forward, no?
Well, and we don't know the extent of it because there was a legal fund that was established as part of this thing. And the idea was that women who were abused by powerful men would be protected by powerful women. And the concept is great because, I mean, it's terrifying to go against somebody who's powerful because we know what's happened in history is that these victims get re-victimized again. They're not believed, they're criticized, they're attacked, they're shamed. This happens, that's real. And so the idea behind Time's Up was absolutely valid. People put their hard-earned money behind it to support that. And there was a legal fund established for it. And what happened to that legal fund? Was Kaplan's firm paid by that legal fund? Did that fund Amber Heard's representation? So I think we are entitled to know that, or especially the people who donated are entitled to know is what happened to that legal fund.
Can people sue for that? Because I see that's a lot of questions. Like they're asking for their money back now at this point, which feels like they should. But is there a case or anything that's could make that happen? Could they have to be forced to give back some of their money if it's proven to be a false charity?
It's set up as a charity. And absolutely, there can be and probably should now be an investigation as to how that charity used its funding. So that can be very, very serious. So I don't think, I mean, this is just breaking today on this particular story. So we certainly haven't heard the end of it. But, here we're seeing Roberta Kaplan involved with the Cuomo investigation behind the scenes in a really shocking way. There's no way that she didn't understand that this was a conflict of interest. So she didn't understand.
I want to help you get there because you helped me highlight some of these. This is the investigation into Cuomo, correct? And so this is what we've caught, what that investigation caught Kaplan doing. Can you quickly sort of summarize this?
Sure. So the New York State Attorney General's office did a very intensive report that just came out. And this thing is footnoted. They did a real investigation.
It's long.
And as part of that investigation, they realized, this is like 200 pages. So we've gone through this. Part of the investigation is one of the victims, and I'm not going to name her, even though she's publicly, spoken, but I'm just not going to name her. But one of the victims, the first victim that came out against Cuomo, immediately was subject to Cuomo's wrath and attempt to say, how can we attack this person? How can we discredit this person? So internally in Cuomo's team came up with a draft letter that they were thinking about issuing to the press, maybe as an op-ed, that contained a lot of shaming elements, talking about her relationships potentially with other men, discrediting her, using hearsay, and then really, really bad parts from her employee file, confidential information. So some idiot, it was an idea to say, let's use this and leak it to the press or have somebody write it as an op-ed. And then they start exposing it to the Cuomo team to say, what do you guys think about this? And guess who's on the Cuomo team? Roberta Kaplan.
Ugh.
And so everyone, and there's some people on the team who are reported here in the report that actually are saying, this is a horrible idea. You should not do this. You can't do this. Please don't do this. Okay. Good for you people standing up for what's right. Roberta Kaplan, on behalf of herself and Time's Up, said, hey, we're cool with this letter. Just take out the references to the other guys. We're cool with this letter containing unverified sources.
Hearsay,
confidential information from the employee file. Any attorney would say, you cannot do that. You just can't even look at it. That you're going to be cooked if you do that. We're cool with that. No problem. And it's an attack piece. It's a hit piece. It's not just saying, oh, Governor Cuomo denies. This is to attack, shame, discredit the victim, not only to get rid of her, but also all the other people who would have came out next to say, hey, that happened to me too. Well, that's telling them, you better be quiet because look what we're doing to this person. She was saying, thumbs up, that sounds good to me.
It's scary because they just became Twitter. Is what they're just like, yep, it's whatever. Someone tweeted something, so it must be true. She should be. Why should we trust her? And what's so scary is like I was one who was screaming that to the clouds, and still to this day, people are like, whatever, he's a liar. It's insane that the lawyer who's running this movement is out there just deciding which victim to believe based on who she's repping. The conflict of interest there is terrifying. And it's so sad too, because look, I've always fought back to say, look, even though part of it destroyed me, the Me Too, these Time's Up things, I don't want them to be useless. I think you eloquently explained why these things were well-intentioned, what the good they could do. There's a lot of reckonings that were deserved. There was a lot of women standing up and learning that they should stand up. All of this was wonderful. But, there were a lot of bad apples on the other side as well. And there was a lot of social media justice, mob rule, and people just jumping in and Time's Up to everybody. Anybody who made an accusation, you're out. And it just, this goes to show we got to be more careful. We got to be more careful in who we're trusting, who we're putting our money to, who's in charge of it. Giving anybody power can lead to abuse. It's the sad reality of the world we live in. And the irony of this organization, who was tasked with protecting all these women and all these people would donate so much money, only to be abusing the power themselves to get further along or protect their powerful politicians. It is sickening. It is sickening, and it just makes the whole thing look like a crock. I mean, I got to be honest. And so anybody out there who's criticizing is going to go, see, told you. See, women, don't believe women. They're all blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's just going to create such a sad and frustrating thing and just prove what's the point, right, Christopher? It's terrifying. What I mean, they're not. Will they even do? They're saying they're doing an investigation. You brought up this open letter from all the survivors, which you guys should read. I'll put a link to this one in there so you guys can actually read. It's just so sad. All these survivors who stood up and they wrote out this big idea, all these things. But then here's what Time's Up speaks out, what they wrote. We're going to hold ourselves accountable, blah, 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 blah. No real, just like the Golden Globes, but to me, this is way more worse. No real plan, no real, transparency planned. Robbie stepped down, so, we agree that was appropriate. It's all good. Let's move forward. I mean, is this enough, Christopher?
No way. It shows no insight or understanding of how this happened. That they knew that Roberta Kaplan was out there representing clients and representing people in potentially defending clients against claims of abuse or sexual harassment, discrimination, whatever it is. So that would automatically put her in a conflicted position, because you can't be a part of an organization that's there to defend and protect people who allegedly have been abused, and then have a side practice where you're defending people who are accused of abuse. Those two things are not going to mix well. She should have realized that from the beginning. Time's Up should have seen that from the beginning. And what happens is that this creates a potential for abuse of the system here, because what will happen is there's a very easy way for predators to get away with what they're doing. These people are smart. That's why we call them predators, because they prey on people that are vulnerable or on their vulnerabilities. So here, if you want to silence a critic, what better way than to hire them? Yep. You've now ingratiated yourself with them. They don't want to talk against you because they're on the payroll. So, hey, go ahead and hire Cuomo, Roberta Kaplan. And now she's not going to want to speak out. She can't speak out. She represents him. She cannot say anything bad about him. She's the attorney. But she's also on this Time's Up. So how do those things mix? They don't. It's an obvious conflict that she should have seen from the beginning. And here she is sort of, I was going to say, you're queuing it up, because here's her excuse letter of how she, fortunately recent events have made it clear that our apparent allies in the fight advanced women can turn out to be abusers. We felt that raw. She's just basically like, we didn't know. Who would have known? Putting aside whether the transparency of the party leaders would have been inconsistent, blah, blah, blah. She says here, as a result, I cannot offer the degree of transparency, but my firm's matters now being demanded that would be contrary to my responsible as a lawyer. Therefore, I have to reluctantly come to the conclusion that an active litigation practice is no longer compatible with serving on the board of Time's Up, and I hereby resign. Now, you're just saying that. Of course she should have known that earlier, right? She should have known that from day one. That should have been obvious from day one that these are incompatible activities, and then Time's Up should have known from day one these are incompatible. But how much money did she get paid from Cuomo? How much money did she get paid? And I don't know. I don't know if her firm did any work on behalf of the Time's Up legal fund, but if it did, how much money did they get paid there? So if that's true, that is very, very concerning. And to say now, August 9th, 2021, I've suddenly realized I have a problem with this. Well, you didn't have a problem with it until you got caught, until it was exposed to the public. You didn't see that it was a problem. And now all of a sudden that everyone knows about it, it's a problem. No. This should have been an issue spotted from day one.
Now, there's so much to hear, and I'm going to pay attention to the story, and I hope a lot of you will click and share this story because it's an important one, because it doesn't seem as sexy as a headline. A lot of you are sort of avoid whatever, but this is awful, and this woman needs to be held accountable, and there needs to be some serious auditing and such into this organization to figure out what went wrong and who else was wronged, who else did they go up against, who else got pushed down, male or female. That's important for us to know. So please get this word out while you're there. Please also, I hit the wrong button, hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell for all alerts, smash that like button, and leave a comment, because the engagement helps, because these types of topics, they just don't want us talking about this sort of stuff. But I always try to go against the grain for all of you, because I do believe this is important. So please let me know this is getting out there. And let us know, do you see ads? I always do that test, because if you don't, YouTube is likely hindering its release. So help me get it out there if you can. Now, look, I want to connect this because I've reported on Amber Heard a lot. I got to be careful. I can't say her name too much more. But I got to give Laura here on Twitter, is a great researcher in the Justice for Johnny campaign. And she reminded me and sent me over a few more connections to Roberta Kaplan to show, look, this wasn't a one-time questionable activity she did with Cuomo. She also represented Weinstein regarding AmFAR, where she claims she knew nothing about it. Now, AmFAR was this charity, you were helping me understand too, right, Christopher? Like, it was a sort of charity organization that Weinstein was using to sort of do some things, allegedly, whatever. I want to be careful. They were out there trying to raise more funds. Everybody in this person, Tom Ajami, who opened up about the investigation, the questionable practices, admitted that everybody interviewed knew about Harvey Weinstein, and we're always hesitant to join into the sort of the charitable aspects of it because of that. But Kaplan later, when all this was realized, said, at that time I had no idea of all this stuff that was committed by Weinstein and is being investigated. Lies. Total and utter lies. Christopher, I don't know, you're in the industry a bit, you're in Hollywood. Tarantino just did a whole rundown where he's like, yeah, of course we all knew. Anybody who says otherwise is a liar. We knew, but we maybe didn't know to the extent of, some of the allegations, sure, but we know he was a problem, and we all should have said more, and we didn't. Do you believe she didn't know?
It seems incredible to me that she wouldn't have known when this analyst here was saying, and Ajami, he's an attorney, and he was doing this investigation into this charity, was hearing from all the sources that he was interviewing at that time of these allegations. So, I don't know exactly what she knew, but it sounds incredible to me. And if you are a champion for victims, for women victims, why would you be associated with this guy after that? So that again, and I know Weinstein was doing this type of thing where he was hiring lawyers or ingratiating himself with lawyers who he thought would expose him. And in that article, I believe they also talk about Lisa Bloom, who was also out there with a very successful practice in representing female victims. And then now we found out this a while back, that there was a connection there, that this very meeting where Weinstein was ranting about all these people making accusations against him, that Lisa Bloom was there and actually introduced this investigator to Weinstein. And then we found out later about a book deal, apparently, that Weinstein had offered Lisa Bloom. And that he was
offering a lot of book deals at the time. Certain journalists said no and actually did the right thing, and some did not.
Yeah, in that way, and who knows what was understood by the person receiving that offer, but that was, I think, an attempt by Weinstein to silence his critics, and it's a very effective way. Sometimes somebody will bully and threaten with the cease and desist letters. Others will use money as the way to get people to stop.
Well, it keeps going. There's a couple more I want to go into. She also defended Goldman Sachs against this harassment lawsuit, which went in. Super sketchy stuff she's been involved in. You can go do more homework, but I do sort of want to fast forward to this one, which to me was the most interesting, related to a topic we've done on this channel a lot, and AH, as we call her, because we have to be careful. But here's Kaplan when she represented AH. This was in September of 2019, making a statement talking about the actual what's it called, the letter. I just draw a blank on the op-ed that Miss AH wrote about Johnny that caused all of this. The fact that Depp would ever try to impose liability for this statement only confirms the startling breadth of his legal theory. While Mr. Depp may believe that everything Miss Heard says is actually about him, readers blessed with a grasp of English usage and context can readily discern otherwise, especially in a political opinion piece like this one. And so she's basically saying that op-ed that Amber wrote wasn't about him, which is just utter horse crap. We knew that from the beginning. And it's just interesting because as we progress forward, Kaplan ended up leaving when Amber's stuff was getting a little bit more complicated. She actually left the case, and she said, well, it's because it's in Virginia, and she's going to get a Virginia lawyer. Just to clarify quickly, Christopher, she could have still repped that case if this was an important case. She's a high-profile attorney. There's no reason that she couldn't have still gotten Virginia counsel and still repped her from afar or however she wanted to, correct?
Well, yeah, Kaplan was not a Virginia lawyer apparently anyway and had to be specially admitted for this Virginia case. So there would always have to be Virginia counsel involved in the matter. So that didn't really make a lot of sense. But what Kaplan said in the statement, or her firm said in the statement, was that due to the lockdowns, and this is June of 2021, I'm sorry, this is in June of 2020, that due to the pandemic, there were travel restrictions, which made it hard for the firm to go to Virginia. And honestly, that does make sense to me. I don't know if the Virginia court was allowing video appearances at that point.
Christopher's being nice. He's a lawyer. He's going to play both ways. I don't buy this. I think there was something else beyond there of why Amber left, but you can make up your own call there. Anyway, all of that said, Kaplan no longer represented Amber, but he's right. It could have been for other reasons. Could have been because Amber got rid of her. Because of anyway, what ended up happening was the Virginia lawyer, this Elaine, actually later made it very clear in a recent orders that it was in fact about Johnny Depp. Which became public, obtaining facts underlying two actions. The op-ed addresses her allegations against Depp during the relationship. She says it out very clearly. I mean, this again, yet another example of Kaplan clearly lying, which one would argue a lot of lawyers sort of fudge the truth, but this is a flat out lie she told. No, I mean this is problematic too. No.
Well, it's inconsistent. It can't be about him and not about him. So, and this is the more recent filing here. So and honestly, it's like, who else was she talking about? I don't think she's ever made that clear. So it is another highly questionable statement for sure that calls her credibility into question.
So all of this comes to a point of how much can we trust her. It looks like we can't. However, according to her own letter, this has been difficult, but, this is the challenges against women, and we're still very much going to continue this mission, blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry. I feel like we should make sure she gets held more accountable for this. Just because she's a fancy, big attorney doesn't mean she shouldn't be held responsible for this mistake and these massive conflicts of interest that have, I'm sure, affected a lot of people emotionally, financially, etc. And this organization, Time's Up, also we need to do more homework into to figure out who else is behind this. I couldn't find the exact, but maybe some of the comments can help me. I remember also when James Franco was going through his trouble. This was back in 2018, and he was getting these accusations against him. And he decided to show up and wear a Time's Up pin to all the awards. And a lot of people were dragging him because of that, because they're like, whoa, dude, you don't get to do that because, there's a lot of accusations about you, yada, yada, yada. But it really felt like there was some sort of protection. There was some sort of like Hollywood PR plan that Franco was going through the motions of because he knew a lot of powerful people, the Judd Apatows and stuff, who are always the quickest to judge us, but then silent when their own friends have problems. And it really felt like they were behind sort of trying to get him over this hump. Of course, as things progressed, the lawsuits progressed, James Franco has proven to not had to settle for seemingly large amounts. Even his own friend Seth now has finally sort of condemned him, and it seems like the two at least talked and know the whole story. I'm not here to condemn Franco or any of these people. All I'm trying to point out is the fact of how hypocritical and ridiculous this whole system is. The Hollywood industry, the Time's Up, all of it, to me, is shady. We got to be more careful, and we got to protect victims better than this, and it really angers me. So I want to make sure you guys are paying attention to this story. I'm grateful for Christopher coming here so we can expose it. There's so much more to unpack and unravel about all this, and I want to make sure we keep doing it, so I will. But Christopher, any final words you want to add, points you want to say before we wrap this up?
Thanks. Yeah, what's super hurtful about this is how other women are going to be affected, because anytime a victim of abuse is going to come out against a powerful man, they're scared, and rightly so. And now, who do you trust? If you can't trust Time's Up, who do you trust? So this has done so much more damage than to Kaplan's own reputation. This has done damage to all of those people that they're trying to protect going forward. So it is really, really a bad thing what she did. And I don't know how that gets restored. How do you get trust back? How do you allow victims to feel that they can actually talk to somebody and know that this information is going to stop right there and it's not going to be shared or used against them, and that there's double dealing happening? So this has far-reaching consequences beyond this particular case of Cuomo.
Amen. And she needs to be held accountable. We need to figure out what's going on here, because I'm worried they won't. I mean, there's a very likely chance they'll just investigate. Well, severe conflict of interest. Could she get disbarred? Like, what is the punishment for something like this? Or is there none? Can lawyers just sort of, I feel like there's a lot of relations to Britney. I feel like there's a lot of incompetence we spoke about in the last one, where it's like, they're not the best. They move on, they keep doing it. Is there a punishment? Is there something we, the people, can help to try to push towards to sort of get a proper accountability on this?
Well, I would imagine that it's going to be looked at more deeply. But look, we haven't seen a lot of people held accountable. A lot of people do things and get away with it. And so I don't know that anything more is going to come out of it. And that's the unfortunate part of it, is because then it just happens again with a different cast of characters.
Right, and I do want to say also, look, whatever you think about Cuomo is saying it's all untrue, just to have all sides put out there. All I know is this investigation by a third party that he approved came forward and found relevant evidence on all of this. And it seems that regardless of your take of whether you believe it or not, Roberta Kaplan is a massive conflict of interest in this. And I want to make sure we don't get lost in the weeds and the comments down but Cuomo, blah, 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 blah. To me, it almost doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is she's supposed to be there representing the victims of this Time's Up movement going up against powerful men and doing that, and not out there shaming and saying, well, this is true. It's a massive conflict of interest, and it just shows you where her loyalties lie, whoever's paying her. And that's not going to get justice done. That's not fair. That's not the way this is supposed to work. And so I want to make sure we also put all that out there. This isn't a video about whether any of these men or women did it. It's about making sure we get justice, right? It's about making sure we take care. We expose the bad apples who were actually caught through due process, through legal, which Time's Up is supposed to be funding. That's what this is all supposed to be. But when you hear they're crooked, which it seems like you feel when they're acting like Twitter, which is really what happened to me, Christopher, it's so scary, because this is, now we know Time's Up is just as a Twitter mob, in my opinion, the way they act of like, yep, whatever we got to do. We like this. This guy's in our circle, so it doesn't matter. We'll defend them. We won't endorse this one, but we'll endorse this one. Oh wait, you're paying. It's so shady and so frustrating and so scary. And for all the people that gave money, I'm sorry. Make sure you do your homework and look into this, because this is awful. This is really bad news, and it infuriates me to see this happen. This happens so many times in charities. So I always love to find those really smaller charities that are really doing the hard work, that need the help, because there's a lot of crisis centers and local organizations you can find to go support to make sure women are getting taken care of. Right now, make sure you pause on giving any more money till time's up, until we figure out what's going on over there. Again, Christopher, thank you so much for being here. I'll put link to Christopher's YouTube channel in the description below. Make sure to go check out his channel at Law Live, and always a pleasure to have you, sir.
Thanks, Andy.
We'll be back with more coverage. Please get this out there. Stay tuned for more coverage here on Popcorn Planet.